The EU's foreign policy chief proposes sanctions on Israeli ministers over their remarks on the war in Gaza.
Russia continues to fire missiles and drones onto Ukraine, some of which have been intercepted by Kyiv armed forces.
Emmanuel Macron signs a deal with Alexander Vučić to sell Serbia 12 Rafale fighter jets.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has finished his tour of West Africa, where he signed a number of agreements on curbing migration.
The EU's foreign policy chief has said the bloc should consider sanctions on some Israeli government ministers over their remarks about the war in Gaza. Josep Borrell said some members of the Israeli cabinet who he didn't name had released hateful messages and proposed things which clearly go against international law.
And I think that the European Union has not to have taboos in order to use our toolbox in order to make humanitarian law respected. But it's not my decision. I only have the capacity of proposal. Member states will decide.
But the 27 EU member countries are divided over their approach to the war in Gaza, and it's unlikely that all would agree to the proposal. There's already been pushback to the suggestion from Italy's foreign minister, who called it unrealistic.
Dobbiamo cercare di risolvere I problemi, convincere Israele a fare delle scelte che portino a cessate il fuoco a Gaza, perché questa è la priorità vera, non è con il riconoscimento della Palestina teorica, con le sanzioni ai ministri israeliani che si risolve il problema. Serve più diplomazia, servono messaggi.
Those comments come on the same day the World Health Organization announced that Israel had agreed to limited pauses in fighting in Gaza to allow a polio vaccination campaign to go ahead. Described as humanitarian pauses that will last 3 days in different areas of the territory, the vaccination program will start on Sunday and will be run together with UNICEF, UNRWA and local partners.
I'm not going to say this is the ideal way forward, but this is a workable way forward. Not doing anything would be really bad. We have to stop this transmission in Gaza, and we have to avoid the transmission outside Gaza.
The WHO says it aims to vaccinate 640,000 children under the age of 10 and that the campaign had been coordinated with Israeli authorities.
Russia has continued its days-long missile and drone attack on Ukraine, but Ukrainian officials say air defences intercepted most of the aerial rockets. The Ukrainian Air Force says it stopped 2 missiles and 60 Shahed drones from reaching their targets on Thursday. Kyiv City Military Administration officials say they blocked more than 10 drones fired upon the capital city. Debris from destroyed drones fell in 3 city districts, causing minor damage to civilian infrastructure. No injuries or deaths were recorded. Meanwhile, as new Ukrainian armed forces learn how to fire grenade launchers, Ukraine's Army General Staff acknowledged Kyiv's recent strikes on oil depots deep inside Russia. The Rostov region has been put on high alert due to burning fuel from the attacks, Russian media reports.
French President Emmanuel Macron has signed a deal with President Alexander Vučić to sell Serbia 12 Rafale fighter jets. The announcement was made during a news conference in Belgrade during Macron's visit to strengthen Serbia's ties with the European Union. Macron called the deal historic and important.
Le choix des avions de chasse Rafale par la Serbie est à cet égard un choix clair, celui d'une alliance de long terme entre nos deux pays, au sein d'une Europe plus forte et plus souveraine, et que ce choix participe de notre autonomie stratégique et du renforcement de celle-ci.
Serbia needs to upgrade its fleet, and Vučić said the Rafale deal was huge news.
Pomoćnim logističkim paketom, dakle od rezervnih motora do svega drugog, ukupna vrednost ugovora je 2,7 milijardi. 12 potpuno novih aviona biće u vlasništvu Republike Srbije.
Russia has been the traditional supplier of military aircraft to Serbia, which has refused to join international sanctions against Moscow for its invasion of Ukraine. Macron warned that after the Russian invasion, Serbia's balancing game between world powers was an illusion. He said Serbia will only be able to protect its interests and preserve its identity as part of the EU.
U tom smislu Srbija jednostavno jeste neprikosnovena i pokretač tog ekonomskog razvoja celokupnog Zapadnog Balkana. Ali ono što je činjenica, to nije dovoljno u pogledu dugoročnih perspektiva razvoja Srbije i mora se pokušati da se sustignu ili bar približimo se tim zemljama kao što su, na primjer, Slovačka, Rumunija, pa čak i Hrvatska i Slovenija. U tom smislu jako je bitno partnerstvo sa Francuskom.
But selling Rafales to Russian ally Serbia, which has occasionally expressed an aggressive stance towards its Balkan neighbours, has raised some concerns. One of those is how France plans to prevent sophisticated Rafale technology from being shared with Russia.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has announced that Poland's budget for 2025 will include record spending on defence. At more than 43 billion euros, Poland's finance minister Andrzej Domanski says the proposal would constitute 4.7% of GDP. This is compared to the 4.2% in 2024, which had already made Poland a top defence spender in both NATO and the EU.
Przygotowaliśmy budżet budowy i siły. Będziemy budować to, co jest potrzebne zarówno ze względu na bezpieczeństwo Polski, to bezpośrednie, jak i bezpieczeństwo energetyczne. Zdecydowaliśmy także o rekordowo wysokich wydatkach na obronę. Mówimy tu o blisko 190 miliardach.
The Eastern European nation borders war-torn Ukraine, making security a high priority. Since the start of the Ukraine war, Poland has made large purchases of military equipment, including fighter jets, tanks and missile defence systems from the US and South Korea. The budget plan will be debated with the trade unions and still needs approval from Poland's lawmakers and from President Andrzej Duda. Spanish President Pedro Sanchez has finished his tour of 3 West African countries, Mauritania, Gambia and Senegal, during which he committed to increasing legal migration channels, but also signed partnership agreements aimed at curbing illegal crossings. Experts say one of the reasons behind the increase in arrivals to the Canary Islands is the recent agreement signed by the European Commission with several Mediterranean countries, including Tunisia.
For political reasons, there is an engagement both from Libyan militia and from Tunisian government to intercept and send back migrants violating human rights. So if we look at the Mediterranean region as a whole, we can see as the increase of Canary Islands means also an increase of interception in other entry points in Europe.
To stem the surge in arrivals, one of Sanchez's proposals is to promote what is known as circular migration. That is, to host foreign workers temporarily before sending them back to their country of origin. Morocco and Senegal already have an agreement, which is now being extended to Gambia and Mauritania. NGOs welcome Sanchez's suggestion but warn there are risks.
When we speak about circular migration or legal pathway is mainly related to seasonal workers. Seasonal workers that we clearly know when we think to Huelva, but also to Puglia or to Calabria in the south of Europe means often exploitation.
There has been a 154% increase in the number of arrivals to the Canary Islands in the first few months of 2024. The journey from Gambia or Senegal is considered to be very dangerous. It can take several days and is subject to strong Atlantic currents. One option for dealing with the surge in migration is a system in which migrant minors are distributed across the different Spanish communities, something similar to the European Solidarity System. And although European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is not expected to make a visit to the Canary Islands for the time being, her team says she hasn't ruled it out.
More than 100 tons of dead fish has washed into the central port of Volos. The freshwater fish have filled both the bay and nearby rivers after they were displaced from their normal habitats by flooding last year. Fishing trawlers have been chartered by regional authorities along with earth movers to scoop the fish out of the sea and load them onto trucks where they will be taken to an incinerator.
Βρισκόμαστε σε συνεργασία με όλο τον κόσμο που θέλει να βοηθήσει να φύγει αυτό το φαινόμενο, να τελειώσει όσο το δυνατόν συντομότερα. Ο Περιφερειάρχης μας ζήτησε την κήρυξη του νομού σε έκτακτη ανάγκη.
Water levels rose abruptly last autumn during a storm that caused extensive flooding in central Greece, but have since receded due to low rainfall and successive heat waves this summer. Experts say a net wasn't placed at the mouth of the river leading into Volos, so when the freshwater fish were carried with the floodwater, they died when they came into contact with seawater. The mayor of Volos accused regional authorities of acting too slowly and said the rotting fish could cause an environmental disaster. And the city's Chamber of Commerce said it was taking legal action to seek damages after commercial activity in the popular tourist destination dropped by an estimated 80% over the last 3 days.